Wargaming is a hands-on procedure that increases the reliability of wireless audio frequencies. We set up a small system at an auditorium to show how wargaming works. But before we actually start the game, I need to explain why it's used. Wargaming ensures that frequencies are free of intermodulation products, or intermods for short. Intermodulation is the interaction of radio signals between transmitters, especially analog transmitters and other active devices. It's much easier to show than tell. Here we've got two transmitters tuned to exactly 1 megahertz apart, which is, by the way, not something you would want to normally do. Intermodulation is much more pronounced when transmitters are close. If we bring them together, we can see intermods appear. You cannot get rid of intermodulation when using analog transmitters. Transmitters in close proximity will always generate harmonics because of intermodulation. What you can do is program your system so that none of your center frequencies fall on any of the intermods. That's easy enough with 2 signals. But things start to get complicated once you have 3 or more transmitters in the same area, like on a stage. So complicated, or rather tedious, that you need the help of a computer. Here, we're using clear waves and an RF Explorer Rack Pro spectrum analyzer. We set the span of the analyzer to scan the spectrum of our block for interfering signals. Then, Clearwaves tells us how many transmitters can fit into our span. Under these conditions, Clearwaves gives us 22 frequencies. These are the best choices that the software spits out based on the simulation it runs. They're vastly superior than choosing frequencies manually or randomly, but they aren't necessarily perfect. For the sake of example, I decided to program my 4 UHF-R channels to these 4 frequencies, all next to one another. Now we can start the wargaming process. Place transmitters in a row in the performance area, spaced apart by 2 or 3 feet, and then turn off each transmitter one by one. Watch the RF levels on the receivers back at the rack. When a transmitter is off, the RF level meter should go completely dead. There should be no levels showing at all. If you see levels, you're seeing harmonics from the other transmitters leaking onto that channel. It may be a reliable frequency for the most part, but it's possible that if 2 transmitters come into contact when the performers interact, or something else goes wrong, that frequency could fail. If the receiver for a powered down transmitter still shows levels, you need to reprogram that channel to a new frequency and repeat the game. Where do you get a new frequency? In this case, we have 18 other frequencies we haven't tried. So I moved the channel from 561 megahertz all the way down to 518.1 megahertz. And as you can see, when we power the transmitter down, those transient levels are gone. Now we move on to transmitter number 2. Like number 1, we're still seeing levels when it's powered down, so it needs a new frequency. I select another frequency from the list that Clearwaves gave us, this time almost 10 megahertz away from where transmitter 1 is located, at 527.6, and power down transmitter number 2. There we go. But, and this is very important, every time we encounter a channel that isn't clean and replace that frequency, we have to start the game all over again and repeat the process from transmitter number 1. We don't go on to transmitter number 3 until we make sure that the new frequency we gave transmitter 1 is still clean after we make changes to subsequent transmitters, and so forth and so on. In this case, it is, and so now we can go on to transmitter number 3. That's how wargaming works. You keep trying different combinations of frequencies, educated guesses, and keep cycling through the game from the beginning until all of your channels are completely clean when the transmitters are turned off one by one. In our case, it only took 3 rounds of gaming before all 4 of our channels came out clean. But we had a lot of spectrum to work with and only 4 channels. With less spectrum, or more microphones, wargaming can take many hours to get right. But if you're putting on an important show and dropouts are simply not an option, the extra effort is worth it to make sure your system can take whatever the spectrum and performers can throw at it.